You're listening to Speaking Of by WFSU Public Media. The summer solstice has officially passed, and the following weeks are usually some of the hottest of the year. This can not only bring discomfort, but also danger, as some of the most vulnerable in our community will struggle to stay cool. Regan McCarthy spoke with some Floridians trying to escape the heat and sat down with Florida Public Radio Meteorologist Tim Miller to discuss how you can stay cool and safe throughout these summer heat waves.
Hi, I'm Regan McCarthy, the interim news director here at WFSU, and I'm filling in for Gina Jordan on today's episode of Speaking Of. Summer is officially here, and it's brought the heat and humidity with it. Today, we're speaking of summer weather.
It's really, really hot, so we definitely needed to cool off a little bit.
Last year, Tallahassee saw its hottest summer on record. That's according to the National Weather Service. During the months of June through the end of August, the average mean temperature in Tallahassee was 84.9 degrees. That beat the previous record of 84.4 degrees that was set in 2011. And some forecasters are calling for a hotter than average summer again this year. Already, temperatures are climbing, with heat indexes in our area topping 100 degrees. To hear some of your perspectives about what the summer could bring, I took a trip to one of the community's prime spots for cooling off.
That was gnarly.
At Wakulla Springs State Park, the summers are busy. Families stop in the lodge for ice cream, parents read books under the shade of the cypress trees, and the bravest swimmers jump from the top of a two-tiered diving platform into the deep spring-fed water that's approximately 68 degrees year-round. In the winter, that steady temperature makes the springs a destination for manatees looking for warmer waters. In the summer, it's a draw for families who need a spot to cool off.
It's one of our favorite places. We come here almost, I would say, at least twice a month, maybe 3 times if we're lucky.
For Alex Harris, who's visiting the springs on this day, the first dip from the blazing sun into the chilly depths requires a game plan.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always go, I can't walk in because I'm too sissy, but I do love to jump off the low dock. Yeah, and you have to fight the kids to get there, but it's definitely worth it.
Harris says she and her family have come to the springs for one specific reason on this day.
Well, I got off of work and my AC is out, so we decided to come over here until it was fixed.
Harris is hopeful the repairs will be finished by the time she gets home. She says it feels like she's getting that air conditioner fixed just in time. She thinks the summer is only going to get hotter, and she's not the only one. Tom Marchese says it's not too bad yet, at least when he's in the shade.
It's hot, but I've been under this tree the entire day, so I've missed the greatest part of it. My wife was out there in the sun before, and she said she got hot.
But he has no doubt this is just the beginning.
Absolutely. It's going to be terrible. Tallahassee in August is one of the worst places to be, in my opinion. It really is.
Marchese says his plans to beat the heat for the next few months are simple.
Stay inside. Essentially, maybe go in the pool if we feel like it. But yeah, for the most part, stay inside. Try to avoid it if we can.
Meanwhile, Cynthia Thompson says she's had her fair share of hot summers growing up in Georgia.
And so I can remember really, really, really hot summers, yeah.
She says she's waiting to see what the temperatures bring next month.
Well, you know, it's not really been super, super hot like it has in the past. This, I would say, I don't know, July will probably be super, super hot.
To get the details on what to expect this summer, whether it's now or later in July or August, I sat down with Florida Public Radio Emergency Network meteorologist Tim Miller. So, Tim, the summer solstice just happened, and we're officially in the start of summer here. And I'm wondering from you, what should we expect this summer as far as our forecasts go?
Heat, humidity, thunderstorms. We'll see you in October. No, seriously. This is every year. Obviously, it's summertime. It gets hot. There are times, though, we go through these little periods where we don't have the typical summertime thunderstorms, right? We have air that comes in that's a little drier aloft that sort of puts a lid on the thunderstorm activity, and it gets hot. And I mean, we're talking, well above normal temperatures. Generally speaking, believe it or not, you're talking central Florida all the way to, North Florida near Tallahassee with these thunderstorms that develop. We don't really see these upper 90s and that type of thing as often in the midsummer because of the afternoon storms. But when the drier air starts to filter on in and we don't have these afternoon storms that pop up, it is going to be hot. As we look ahead towards really the next 3 months, that basically takes us through the summertime, Regan, I'm thinking that temperatures will be just a little bit above normal, and precipitation will also be a little bit above normal. So sort of even keel there. So what that means is we'll have hot temperatures by early afternoon, and then we'll get our thunderstorms that develop. The days that we don't have those thunderstorms like we're going to see this week, that's when we can start to see some really intense heat.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because you talk about like the dry heat versus the wet heat. And so I've always heard wet heat is worse. But it sounds like, when you say, oh, there won't be thunderstorms, it seems like that would mean you're going to have a dry heat, like it might be better.
Yeah, I have friends that live out in Arizona and they all, rave about how dry the heat is out there. Oh, boy, it's 115 degrees today, but it's dry heat. Well, my oven also produces dry heat, and it's still hot. It cooks things, right? So the same thing applies. The difference is taking away the humidity. The humidity is what drains us. Now, still, if desert arid climates such as Phoenix, New Mexico in the summertime, 115 is still 115. That's very hot. In fact, they still have heat advisories out there. Even 115 and higher is hot for Phoenix standards. But if they had 115 heat index with the humidity, it would just be beyond oppressive. And so that's what we look at. We look at the humidity factor. Obviously, we're more of a tropical climate, so all across the state. So this time of year, we're going to have the humidity. So the humidity is the real factor. We can get into that, how actually dangerous our heat can actually be.
Yeah, so when you talk about humidity and the factor of the wet heat there, like we're talking about the heat index, right?
Correct, right. It's the heat index. That's where we basically calculate the relative humidity based on the temperature reading. And then we come up with a heat index. So really, it's the humidity that adds, the real problem to our summers because that creates that heat index. And that heat index, what it feels like to exposed skin is much like the opposite when you have a wind chill factor, right? It's basically the same thing. You're dealing with the wind rather than the humidity and cold temperatures, hence a wind chill. But with the heat, it's the humidity that's our big issue. And here in Florida, obviously, that is our tremendous problem. When we can have dew points at times, upper 70s to around 80 degrees. If you're dealing with an 80-degree dew point, you're dealing with air, Regan, that's basically in the Amazon. I mean, that's the type of air that you're dealing with.
Wow.
And it can be so oppressive. So when you're talking the humidity, that's what drains you. It's that heat index. When we're talking 103, 106, maybe up to 109. And I believe we'll hit 109 in some places across the state as far as the heat index, what it feels like, the actual feels like temperature this week. So it will be probably the hottest temperatures we've seen all summer.
Wow. And so when people talk about the heat index, I feel like I also hear them use some other words. Do these all mean the same thing? There's the heat index, there's the feels like temperature, and then there's something called the wet bulb. Are those all the same thing?
Well, the wet bulb and dew point and all that are things that basically meteorologists use to really get into forecasting the weather. For the general public, understanding how the wet bulb works wouldn't really, it would be, it would be yawning. People really wouldn't be interested in that. But when we're talking like the feels like temperature and the heat index, it's the same thing. The reason why we say that with the feels like temperature is because basically we're just taking it down to street level, right? So where people can understand it. One of the things that we like to do, and one of the things that I like to do, is to make weather relatable, right? Instead of, talking thermodynamics and everything over everyone's head, everyone just wants to know What's the temperature going to be? What's the weather going to be like? Just tell me what the weather's going to be. So that's when we talk about feels like, when we bring the humidity into place here. And one of the things that we need to be very considerate of is our senior citizens. Frankly, I mean, that heat, especially those that have maybe moved from the Midwest or up north to Florida. We know there's... I read a report. Is it 1,000 people a week or 1,000 people a day? Some astronomical amount of number of people that are moving to Florida every day, and they think of Florida as beautiful in the fall, in the wintertime, which it is. It's also beautiful in the summer and spring, but it's hot. And if you're not used to this heat, Regan, this can really have a factor on you. And so those that are perhaps new here, or especially our senior citizens out in this heat. This can be very, very dangerous to them, and it can sneak up on you quickly because there's a big difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Yeah, heat exhaustion is when you're sweating, right? You feel clammy. You may feel a little nauseous. You're exhausted. You're drained, right? But you're fairly lucent, although you can have heat exhaustion and actually pass out, but you are thoroughly sweating, and there's just no doubt about it. You're soaking wet, and at that point, you need to go hydrate. Hydration is critical. And when we talk about hydration, we're not only talking about water, we're talking also about electrolytes to be able to replenish your body with that. When we're talking about liquids, we're not talking about iced tea, any caffeinated beverage, Red Bull, none of that stuff. Certainly no alcohol or even sodas. You don't want anything like that. You want either a Gatorade, or water to be able to hydrate yourself appropriately. And then, of course, cool compresses. Get into an air-conditioned room, and you should recover fairly quickly with that. But you'll notice you'll be sweating profusely, and you'll be dizzy and maybe even a little bit nauseous. That's with heat exhaustion. With heat stroke, you're not sweating, which seems totally contrary. You would think if you're on the verge of heat stroke, you'd be 10 times wetter, but actually you're not sweating. You've stopped sweating. Your body temperature is up to about 103 degrees, and you're going into shock, and more than likely will pass out. At that point, you need to seek medical attention immediately. That does, certainly you want to be able to cool the body as much as possible, but at that point you've reached the point of no return, and you certainly need medical help when you are in a heat stroke situation. And you'll also have the feeling of being nauseous and feeling that you want to throw up, and the feeling that it's just you're going to pass out. More often than not, with heat stroke, you do pass out. So there is a fine line between the two, but with heat stroke, you need to seek medical attention immediately. And heat exhaustion can be remedied at home, of course, unless it gets to be out of hand. And it can happen so fast. That's what we don't understand. And is that you could be outside and think, oh, there's nothing to it, and then just a matter of minutes, that sun and the humidity is taking its toll on you.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about sort of what our expectations are for the summer forecast here in Florida. You said maybe a little above average high temperatures coming up soon here. What about, I remember that last summer globally we had what they said was the hottest summer on record. Do you think we're looking at a situation here again where we could be hitting another global record for summer temperatures?
It certainly is possible. I know that this week we're going to see extreme heat throughout the Midwest and Northeast. Places like Chicago, Cincinnati, New York, Washington, maybe even up to Boston as well. In fact, New York City could actually receive a high temperature near 100 degrees, if not a little bit above. And that's not heat index, that's actual temperature. There's another thing, too. Imagine when you're in a city the size of Chicago, which let me talk about that for just a minute. I believe it was... I'm going to throw out dates here, and I may be wrong, but I'm fairly close to it. It may have been 1995 that Chicago received a heat wave for roughly about 4 days, where Chicago had temperatures in excess of 100 degrees. The heat index was 110 degrees. In that time frame there, nearly 500 people perished because of the heat. Now, that really didn't make headlines. It made news, but it didn't make the headlines that I really think it should have made, because you're talking, 500 people in a matter of just a short period of time, perished because of the heat. Right? This wasn't because of a tornado, but because of the heat. So what happens is in cities like Chicago, New York, these major cities where you have a lot of concrete and steel, they develop what we call urban heat islands. So basically the sun just absorbs, the concrete absorbs all the sun's rays and heat and holds it in. That's why, at nighttime, sometimes in the city, in Chicago, you won't get down but maybe to the upper 80s. With those type of heat waves that move on through for overnight lows, sometimes not even 90 degrees. I remember a time, I'm originally from Chicago, where we had an overnight low of 90. That's ridiculous.
Wow.
That's more like Phoenix, and then they throw the humidity in there. So places like, the bigger cities experiencing this heat over the next couple of days is even going to be more dangerous because of the heat that the city actually holds inside the urban center itself. So to answer the question, I do think that we've been on a roll here the last several summers of having above average warmth all across the country and really all across the world. So I don't really see that trend stopping anytime soon.
Well, Tim, thanks so much for answering all my questions. I think up here in the Tallahassee area in North Florida, where we have a lot of those trees and a little less of the concrete, we are thankful for that this summer.
That's true. Those trees, Tallahassee's beautiful. Those beautiful stately trees are just absolutely gorgeous. And the more trees you have, right, the better it is for the city. It keeps the temperature down. So the more trees you plant, the more trees you have. Here at the University of Florida in Gainesville, we have also those beautiful stately trees all over. And let me tell you, that is a big help in keeping the temperature down. So you're absolutely correct about that.
All right. Well, thanks so much for chatting with me today. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you to Florida Public Radio Emergency Network meteorologist Tim Miller. Another question as summer temperatures rise is how to best care for our air conditioners.
People living in Florida, we don't fear hurricanes. We fear no air.
Tammy C. is the owner of OEL Heating and Cooling in Hillsborough County. She says as temperatures are rising, many Floridians are likely running their air conditioning a lot more. She says one thing that can help to keep those AC units running is to make sure to perform regular maintenance, like changing your filters every month and even having a professional inspect your unit on a yearly basis. Another tip is backflushing the drain, says Brian Hebert, who owns 3 HAC.
Spray down your outside condenser coils with the water hose as well, and that'll keep your system running more efficiently and running cooler, and it's something you can do regularly.
Both C and Hebert say that maintenance is growing increasingly important as prices on air conditioners and replacement parts are going up. C says her company is being hit by tariff-induced price increases. C says she's paying roughly 3% more for AC units and replacement parts.
If I'm going to stay in business, I have to increase my pricing, and that's hard.
And Hebert says he's seen prices jump as much as 10%.
Even if there's a talk of a tariff or price increase or material increase, the manufacturers just hammer us with price increases.
Both professionals say increases in other bills are prompting their employees to ask for higher pay, driving up costs for their companies even more. And we can't talk about summer weather without mentioning hurricanes. The season kicked off last month and continues through the end of November. But the season tends to peak in the middle of the summer. And this year, Kevin Peters with the Leon County Emergency Operations Center says forecasters are calling for a more active than normal season.
Yeah, so, I think if I told you, it could be as many as 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes, you would think that's really busy probably, right? But that's simply just what an average season could bring to the Atlantic basin from Maine to Texas.
Wow.
That's what an average hurricane season is.
Wow.
Now, we're talking about a hurricane season in 2025 that might be slightly above normal. We may see 13 to 19 named storms this hurricane season. I think the key that we need to keep in mind is one, at this point we don't know when or where, so we always have to be on watch as we go through the next 6 months of hurricane season, because it just takes one to hit a community to make a problem. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is don't anchor to what your experience was last year. We need to take every new storm serious, and what hazards it may bring. You may have thought last year a storm was coming right for you, and it changed at the last minute. You might have this sense like, oh yeah, we got through that one. We can't assume that. You always have to assume that every new storm that comes this hurricane season is going to be worse than what you experienced last time, and you've got to be ready for it.
Mm-hmm. So don't believe that the Mag Lab with their super magnet down here is actually what's turning these storms for us.
Yeah, that's right. They do some very good research, but it is not actually affecting the weather. Each storm is unique. It's got their own personality, just like every person you meet. Everybody's different. Every storm's going to be different. You have to respect every storm.
For sure. So as we talk about hurricane preparedness, hurricane season starting, I think there's 2 times that people are preparing for storms. One is now at the beginning of hurricane season, and one is once that storm forms and we start to say, hey, that's coming toward the coast, coming toward us. What kind of preparation should people be doing now?
Yeah, so, as we look at hurricane season, we got to start thinking about being prepared, and there's some key things we like people to think about, and really 3 major things is having a plan, knowing what you're going to do this hurricane season, having your disaster supply kit, and as always having ways to receive alerts and warnings and weather updates through this summer. Those are some of the 3 key things as we take that early look into hurricane season.
Great. Anything else that you just think our listeners should know as we prepare for hurricane season starting June 1st here?
It's it's going to be something that we all experience it, and just all of the resources we've talked about today. The 211 leonready.com. There's a lot of information out there. Just encourage people to take a little time and kind of look into it. Call 211 if you feel like that's a need you have, and you don't be afraid to start preparing. That's we can be afraid of the weather a little bit and pensive about what may be coming, but we can't be afraid to prepare. We've all got to get into this together.
And thanks to Kevin Peters, Director of Leon County's Division of Emergency Management. The first tropical system of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season has developed over the Atlantic Ocean. But meteorologists say the storm, named Andrea, poses no threat to land. As we've heard, summer weather brings the possibility of extreme heat, hurricanes, even tornadoes. As severe weather approaches our area, your WFSU News team will be here to keep you updated with the latest. I'm Regan McCarthy.